Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this video. This is literally a special one because I have accomplished the goal basically that I wanted to accomplish before the end of 2024. Even though I accomplished it in 2025, for me it's still big that I have reached more than 500 subscribers, and now the next goal basically it's 1,000 subscribers and more basically. But while also I am getting more subscribers, I'm also trying to make sure also that I'm bringing you good quality content. So basically, now that actually we are back in South Africa, the questions actually that I've been getting quite a lot basically is, how much was your trip? Basically, how did you do the bookings? Can you share any tips? Well, that's basically what I'm going to do in this video. So please make sure actually you stick right till the end. So let's dive into it. So basically the first one, it's location, location, location. And for me, basically, the most important part, basically, when choosing destination that you want to visit, basically, it's their currency compared to mine. Usually, basically, for me, countries that are usually on top are literally the ones that are on par with the South African rand or lower. Yeah, so this way, basically, just for me to make sure that actually the trip is much more enjoyable without actually worrying about setting up a daily budget. If you have the funds for it, basically, you can skip this step. But basically for most people, this is actually the most important. And basically that is why Thailand was number one on my list. It was the second time there for me basically, so which also made things much easier because I already knew what I wanted to do and also the right time as to when to visit. Speaking of time, basically, I actually mean the time of the year that you're planning to travel. Do your research on weather patterns. Peak tourist times, because you definitely don't want to be paying ridiculous prices basically that tourists that are usually charged, especially on peak hours. So I will, and also the flight specials, but I'll touch on this one much later on. When it comes to weather though, please remember which hemisphere that you're currently in. When it comes to weather though, do remember, you need to actually remember which hemisphere you're currently in. In case you didn't know, the planet is primarily divided into two main spheres, North and South. Before I get the bashing that there are four, which include East and West hemisphere, I know, but for now we'll be focusing on North and South. For an example, at the time of shooting this video, I live in the Southern Hemisphere. Therefore, if I'm not planning basically a skiing trip in the Alps, I should definitely avoid basically the Northern Hemisphere, which is also the same for those who are based in the Northern Hemisphere, that you should actually rather avoid our winter, even though it's not that cold. But if you're new here, welcome to On the Road with Rwando. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you're new here, welcome, and I hope basically that my content is worth your while. Also, please do not forget to like and share this content with your friends and loved ones, because basically sharing is caring, and also your comments do help a lot below, basically with the engagement algorithm of YouTube. So please, that is very, very important. But your greatest support is through smashing that subscribe button. It's easy peasy, lemon squishy. That's actually quite very cheesy. So back to the main topic, basically. There are also destinations that are situated in what we call the tropics or in the equator. Basically in this region, their seasons are usually measured by rainy or dry instead of hot and cold that we're used to. For example, places like Caribbean, Brazil, Zanzibar, Kenya, Seychelles, Indonesia, and most importantly, Thailand, they are actually in this region. But also you need to avoid this region basically in the rainy or the monsoon hurricane season, and also basically when it's mid-dry season, when it's too hot. So for Thailand, basically, November all the way to February is usually the ideal weather according to my research, so that you can fly there at the right time. So again, going to tip number 3, speaking of flying, basically, you need to consider basically your transportation to the destination, and flights are usually your best bet. So despite everything actually that is currently going on around the world, flying is still the safest mode of transportation. Now, let me take you on a journey basically on how I usually book my flights and my trips. I usually plan mine basically a year in advance. This way basically gives me time to do some fundraising and basically save up for the trip. So I usually save up for flights first. Accommodation that I can book closer basically to my travel time, but flights are your number one key important thing. So my first port of call basically is using Google Flights and basically seeing what the average prices are on the time that I want to travel. The nice thing basically about this tool, and I'm sure there are many other tools that can achieve the same thing, but for me, it's the flight tracker option that Google Flight has. Let's say I'm planning a trip basically to Sydney, Australia, or to Bali in Indonesia. I'll actually input the destination and my hopeful dates. So for an example, let's say the 21st of October, returning a week later. The site will already give you the monthly prices. So basically here you can browse and also adjust accordingly to what you can afford and what's good for your pocket. The next step here basically is to choose the route or the airline basically that you'd like to fly. For me, actually, I always pick Emirates, and no, this video is not sponsored by them, and hopefully one day they might decide that they want to sponsor On the Road with Lwando. Emirates marketing team, if any one of you is watching this, hint hint. But yeah, never mind about that. But the number one thing basically that attracts me basically to flying the airline is the Airbus A380. I've never had the opportunity to fly the Queen of the Skies, which is the Boeing 747. So the king will do it this time. So as mentioned basically on the clip right here, in terms of comfort for us in the economy section, I doubt that actually there's any other plane currently that can beat the comfort and the quietness basically of the Airbus A380. One day actually when I do get a chance again to fly them, basically I'll also ask if I can do a tour upstairs so that I can show you guys what business class and first class looks like, but we'll stick to economy for now. Fortunately, in South Africa, actually, Emirates flies the A380 at least twice a day out of Johannesburg. Now, this feeds into my next tip. Basically, this is where you need to choose your departure city, which can affect also your ticket prices. Even though Emirates and Qatar do have daily flights basically out of Cape Town International Airport, which is also right here, it's always actually cheaper to fly out of Johannesburg or Tambo Airport. This is also the only airport in South Africa actually that can easily accommodate the jumbo Airbus A380. The reason why I say actually you must do this, hopefully like start saving a year in advance. The number one actually cash that you need to save up for is actually your flights, because flight prices fluctuates dramatically. For an example, when I wanted to fly to Phuket last year, the most expensive price actually was over 22,000 Rand, while the lowest was around 9,000 Rand. Therefore, you actually can see how the flight actually does fluctuate. So when you save up, at least you know that you're able to capture those specials as soon as those flight prices drop, which is why then it's important actually to monitor your tracker. So here, patience is virtue. Another advice basically is to make use of your bank's travel benefits and discounts that you qualify for. I was fortunate enough to have actually a 40% discount on my flight booking through my bank. Another advice that you can actually make use of is actually your banking travel benefits, especially if you have like credit cards with your bank, where you can qualify basically for discounts. For me, I was actually fortunate enough to qualify for up to 40% basically on my flight discount through my bank. So basically, once your flights are secured, then it's game on. The next thing that you need to do is actually immediately purchase your travel insurance. I repeat, this is the one very important thing basically as soon as you book your flight. Travel insurance, you book that in case basically of eventualities where your trip gets cancelled or postponed for whatever reason, so that basically you know that you are covered. Most countries actually do require travel insurance as part of your entry requirements. Speaking of requirements, actually, you need to research the country that you're currently visiting, whether it requires a visa or not. A visa is basically an entry permit that is required before you fly out or you enter the country that you're going to. Other destinations, for example, like Dubai, they do allow visa on arrival applications, but not every country does that, so you need to do your research up ahead of time. If you do not have actually your papers, your visa papers in order, or basically even your passports, your airline can deny you boarding without any refund. Hence, it's very important for you to check this before you leave. So when you visit countries actually that require a visa, you have to actually pay a non-refundable fee when applying for your visa. And basically you will be invited to go to their embassy for a visa interview. Remember, Paying this money does not guarantee you a visa, and your visa can be denied for various reasons, especially when one has a criminal record. But yeah, once all your papers in order, basically the next step that you have to do is to book your accommodation. And for this, I actually recommend you can use Airbnb or booking.com. Remember that you can also use a travel agent to do this, but they'll do it at a cost. This way, basically, it's cost effective, especially if you know what you're doing. But please do not pay money over to an individual on Facebook Market or any other thing, or Gumtree whatsoever regarding trips, because here you can be scammed. And at least with these platforms, you can also dispute or even get a refund, basically, especially if the host is a hoax. Yeah. You don't want to also be stranded in a foreign country. And then speaking of being stranded, I actually do recommend that you book your hotel, airport transfer, return, basically well in advance before you actually even travel to that country. The reason for this is because you're not familiar basically with the routes, the currency, or the language too. And trust me, I've been scammed many times because of this, because you arrive in a country and you think that you know better. You don't. The locals there, they always know better. It won't happen all the time, but yeah, just be sure. So also, if possible, try and make sure that when you book your flight, that your flight actually arrives during the day at your destination, so that at least you can be able to see where you're going. And also, please do research your destination's time zone. Again, in case you didn't know what a time zone is, basically, the globe is divided into many sections. So each country has a different time all over the world. Some countries actually, for example, like the US, will have multiple time zones all in one country. But let me use an example now with South Africa and Thailand. Thailand is 5 hours ahead of South Africa. So meaning in South Africa, if it's 1 o'clock in South Africa, in Thailand, it will be 5 o'clock. If possible, then make sure that you adjust your body's clock to your destination basically a week ahead of time. By this, I mean like sleep quite later on, so that, yeah, you avoid basically a phenomenon which is called jet lag. To avoid the phenomenon which is called jet lag basically is when your body clock is used to your home time zone. For example, let's say you usually go to bed at 9 o'clock at home. This means then by 4 p.m. in Thailand, you'll be feeling sleepy and tired, which, yeah, it's not nice. Therefore, it's quite important to take note of this. Now that actually you've secured your flights, make sure that then you go and have a look again on bookings.com or Airbnb for activities that you can do basically at your destination, to make sure that actually that your payment is going to the right person and not to someone the scam. Yeah. Another bonus tip though that I'd like to give you is to get yourself a flip folder sleeve. Basically, you might be asking, why do you need a flip folder sleeve? This will be very helpful because actually this is where you keep out all your important copies. So here you can print out copies of your passport and then you insert them there. You also print out basically your digital flight bookings and itinerary, so that it's also in this folder, and also your hotel confirmation and any other email correspondence that you've had. Because you don't want, imagine a case where you get to a hotel and there's a mix-up where they can't find your booking. You can actually show them that, hey, this is basically the correspondence and the payment, the proof of payment, etc., that you've made. You can also keep actually your actual passport and some currency in this flip folder, and when you get to your hotel, keep it in the safe and guard it with your life. Again, it's very important wherever you're traveling that your passport is basically safe. Again, it is also quite important to check the destination that you're visiting, whether is it cash or credit card friendly. Here you need to actually to open your eyes, especially to avoid scams. And also, again, another tip that I will definitely give you, especially if you're playing with credit card, always ask for a receipt. Lastly, please make sure that actually once your tickets are booked, for an example, let's say on Emirates, that you download their app, basically, which will create a flight itinerary for you, and will also create reminders, basically, on when to check in, and also what is required, basically, at your destination, and stuff that you can and cannot bring with you at the airport. So, if also your credit card your credit card for your bank offers you lounge visits, I highly recommend that you take up this offer. It will make your trip worthwhile. Trust me with this one. But also, again, please make sure that you activate this weeks in advance. And also, lastly, speaking of banks, please make sure that actually you do notify your bank about your travel itinerary, about your with the dates basically, and also where you're traveling, so that they'll activate your card. I've actually been caught by this where I forgot to inform my bank and I tried to withdraw money at a different country and then they blocked my card, and then it's a long process now where now you have to try and call your bank to get what you call for them to open up this thing for you. So yeah, please make sure that you actually do inform your bank. So I hope this actually will help you while you're booking your next trip. And that also, if you're still here at this time, please make sure that you actually do subscribe and comment below. Basically, I want to know, how do you usually book your trip and what's your one destination that you'd like to visit one day? This has been On the Road with Luando. Keep exploring, stay curious, and I'll see you on the next one.